Mike Vrabel was recently hired to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots, and as a Patriots fan, I feel that it is somewhat my duty as a content creator as well to comment on it and kind of give an outlook to fellow Patriots fans as well as putting some context around other things that may have happened. So, they announced him as the head coach on January 12th, which was just 7 days after firing Gerard Mayo, which also happened very, very soon after the season. I mean, it was after their final game, a couple hours at most after that. So it was end of season, fire Gerard, hire Mike Vrabel. And this marked the end of a very short head coaching search, which involved interviewing Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton, which was largely seen as just a big middle finger to the Rooney Rule. Not a lot of people liked seeing those two be interviewed just as to check off a box because they were never really in the running for head coach. I think that was pretty clear. And then it was Mike Vrabel that got interviewed by the Patriots in person. He was available to be hired because he was not currently employed as a head coach or as a coordinator anywhere. Ben Johnson was the other option, and he is obviously still the offensive coordinator of the Lions, who are still in the playoffs, so he would not be available for any in-person interviews until after the Lions exit the playoffs, which could be till the Super Bowl. So it kind of made sense that the Patriots were looking towards Mike Vrabel as an instant Band-Aid, instant fix to the problem. And there are a couple of other things that make sense. But first, I want to discuss Mike Vrabel versus Ben Johnson and the differences in coaching mentalities and what I personally preferred, as well as what I think happened between Vrabel and the Patriots. So personally, if you watched the podcast since I felt like Mayo was probably going to be fired, I was talking about the possibilities of Vrabel or Ben Johnson in New England. And I always kind of leaned towards having Ben Johnson. We have a young, talented quarterback in Drake May, and I would like to see him fully utilized to the best of his abilities. And I think that means it would be better to have an offensive minded head coach because then he wouldn't get poached, as if we have a defensive minded head coach and then a good offensive coordinator that would then get poached, and we'd be right back to square one with no good offensive coordinator. But at the same time, it is tough for me to see the Patriots situation coming off of having a rookie head coach and saying, you know what, let's do it again. Let's give a big contract because Ben Johnson is a very sought after name. He's going to get a big contract wherever he goes. So we would have to give him a long contract. And in the however unlikely event that he does not pan out, we're stuck with that. We're stuck with the contract and we're stuck with Ben Johnson, or we pull a move like the Cardinals did with Kingsbury, get rid of him and move on to the next, but still be paying the salary. So that's not a great option. And at least personally, and I'm sure people will disagree with me on this, and that is fine. I like to hear multiple opinions and hear those disagreements. So drop them in the comments if you disagree. But I feel like, in general, with exceptions to the rule, offensive-minded head coaches are typically more about schemes, game planning, and utilizing players than defensive coaches, which are more about using the defense as a unit and getting players to be bought in, at least successful ones. So if you are a defensive-minded head coach, your goal is to get the defense to all work together, cover each other's gaps, and make sure the defensive line is working in sync, make sure the linebackers know what they're supposed to do, make sure the DBs know what they're supposed to do. Defenses are much more plug and play than offenses. As an offensive coordinator, offensive head coach, you are always scheming up to your best players. That's what you're supposed to do. That is what the good ones do. We see it with Ben Johnson creating all these crazy plays that go to the fastest players or that get Penei Sewell out on a bootleg. So I feel like the leader of men aspect of being a head coach is typically more inherent to the defensive coordinators and defensive-minded head coaches than it is to the offensive ones. Again, there are exceptions, and there are very successful offensive coaches as well as very unsuccessful defensive coaches in this league. So this is not a guarantee, but personally, for the Patriots, coming off of a situation where we installed a defensive head coach, it did not work at all. There was no success on defense. There was no success on offense. It was a bad year. I can understand why we would want to go towards somebody who is much more proven, as well as having that factor of having players be bought in like Mike Vrabel does. We're getting back towards the Patriot way, which is kind of, it's a bit of a taboo now to say it because the Patriot way was getting Mayo in there and that didn't really work. So it's kind of tough to to lean one way or the other, be like, yes, Patriot way, or no, Patriot way is bad. But Mike Vrabel is definitely the Patriot way of play hard football, get players bought in, and have people that do their jobs and don't focus on the top end talent as much. Obviously, it happened. We had Brady. He was top end talent. He brought in top end talent like Moss. But I digress. Vrabel, as a head coach, getting back towards his credentials and his abilities now, his tenure with the Titans was really notably good for the rosters he was given. He never really had a quality quarterback. It was basically just Tannehill the whole time he was there. And I love Ryan Tannehill just as much as the next guy, but he's not a top tier quarterback. And in this league, it's very tough to succeed without a top tier quarterback. And in his introductory press conference, which was such a breath of fresh air compared to Mayo's, my God, it was nice to hear him say, look, we ran the ball in Tennessee because that's what we had. We had Derrick Henry. We knew we had Derrick Henry, so we were going to be that. We were going to be a running offense. Here we've got Drake May, so we're going to be a passing offense. We're going to be aggressive. Not stupid, but aggressive. And I think that's a really nice thing to hear him say, to acknowledge, yes, we ran the ball a lot, then to justify it and say, we did it because that was what we were built to do, and then go further and say, we are going to do what we're built to do in New England. And if he can keep up with that with his end of that promise, and if he can take advantage of the however few pieces we have, good pieces we have, as well as taking advantage of going into the offseason with a lot of money, with a lot of draft capital and everything, I think we're set up for a very successful future. The bad part of his tenure in Tennessee was his relationship with the then GM, Ran Carthon, who was just fired this offseason. And Mike Vrabel, that is, did not like the move of trading away A.J. Brown, which in hindsight was a terrible move. They got back Treylon Burks, who is still on the roster but is not doing anything for the Titans. And A.J. Brown is, in the playoffs reading books. And he wasn't a fan of a lot of the moves that Carthon was making, and he wanted more control over the roster and the players brought in. And it sounds like, from the conversations that Vrabel and Elliot Wolf are player personnel, the director of player personnel, whatever the hell his title is, de facto GM, it sounds like they have a relationship that's very much more, Vrabel, what do you need? All right, I'll do my best to get that for you. And if that is the case, that removes the issues that Vrabel had in Tennessee. And if you look at Tennessee's roster, when his record started to go down and decline, that was when they were just losing a ton of players. Tannehill was getting older. Derrick Henry, as great as he is on the Ravens, was also getting older, and he wasn't able to be the entire offense. In Baltimore, he's nicely subbed out with some other running backs, and with Lamar Jackson taking some of the workload with a better offensive line than they had in Tennessee. So, career resurgence and whatnot. But the roster that Vrabel was given for his final 2 years in Tennessee was not one that was worthy of winning games, and he still won games with them. So my confidence for his ability to win games with our depleted roster is higher than my confidence would have been in Gerard Mayo going into a year 2. And I really don't know what my confidence would have been in Ben Johnson being able to create his crazy trick plays and everything without the superstar talent, which is the other problem with Ben Johnson, is we know what he does when he has top tier talent. We don't know what he does when he has nobody, which would be basically what he would have in New England. The final point I'll get to, and then I'll just end it off and ask for critiques and opinions in the comments, is that we as Patriots fans need to temper expectations. I have seen a lot of Patriots fans and Patriots content creators and everybody talking about this season's an 8-win season. If we don't win 8 games, it's a bad season. And I get the mentality of that, but I think we need to shoot for 5. We need to shoot for a 5-win season. This is a rebuilding roster. We have pieces. We have Christian Gonzalez. We have Drake May. We have a couple good special teamers, and we have some pieces on the defense. I would call Christian Barmore, Keon White, Juwan Bentley, all part of that some pieces tier, where it's like, yeah, they can be impactful, but they're not Christian Gonzalez. They're not Drake May levels. And then the offensive line is something that really needs to be rebuilt. And I think it's going to be tough for anybody to succeed with a bad offensive line. So again, unless free agency and the draft go perfectly and we're able to bring in one to two quality receivers, 2 to 3 quality offensive linemen, and some good defensive pieces, maybe Abdul Carter in the first round, gimme, love that pick. If we're able to do that, then I think 8 wins is a at least reasonable, more reasonable expectation. But I still would not think that we should expect anything over 5 wins. I'm hopeful that we would be second in the AFC East. I'm hopeful that we would win 8 to 10 games. I am expecting 5+ wins. So, as Patriots fans, we get excited when something changes because things haven't changed for, it's been 20 some years, and the only things that have changed is Brady leaving, Belichick getting fired, and we always get excited when something comes in and something starts to look like it could be good because we could be back to the dynasty days, and we're just not yet. So we were used to perfection for so long that we expect one move to be all we need to make to fix it, and at this point, it's just not the case. So I think we need to temper expectations just a little bit, but I am very curious to see what people that are not fans of the Patriots think of the move to hire Vrabel and what they think of the Patriots' future from the outside looking in, and also what other Patriots fans think when I say, hold your horses on high expectations. So please, as always, leave thoughts down in the comments down below, and stick around with us. This is kind of a preview of some of our off-season content, what it's going to look like. We were supposed to have a podcast and a segment video this week, but due to some technical difficulties, we lost the recordings for those. So this is going to be all we've got for you this week. But as always, we appreciate you watching. From me and my co-host Elijah, who is not with us right now, I, as always, like I said, appreciate you. Comment down below, drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to stick around for some more similar content in the off season, and I will see y'all later. Deuces.